Cincinnati Bengals did a lot of good things in 2012. They won 7 out of their final 8 regular season games, qualified for the playoffs for the second straight year. However, unfortunately, for the second straight year, they lost to the Houston Texans in the wild card round. So clearly, there's a lot of things to like about this team. They've got good young talent on both sides of the ball, but there's also room for improvement, especially on offense. The Bengals offense underperformed this season, finished the year ranked 22nd in total offense, that's yards per game. They played especially poorly in the playoff loss to Houston. The Texans won that game 19-13. Cincinnati's only touchdown came on an interception return from Leon Hall. The offense failing to find the end zone. They only generated 198 total yards. So some questions surround this offense as we head into the offseason, but when you try to identify the specific problem, it's somewhat difficult unless you're willing to blame Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, the young quarterback who just a year ago was talked about as a future star, a guy who was going to be a cornerstone for the Cincinnati franchise for years to come. And he really didn't regress at all statistically this past season. Passed for around 3,700 yards, 27 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Really an identical year, nearly an identical year statistically to what he did as a rookie in 2011 when he was named to the Pro Bowl. But if you don't blame Dalton, who are you going to blame? Offensive coordinator Jay Gruden is a guy who's highly regarded. He's been a head coaching candidate, a candidate for several head coaching jobs around the league over the last couple of years. They've got one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL, and A.J. Green, an emerging star at tight end, and Jermaine Gresham. So, the buck always stops with the quarterback and the head coach. But since Marvin Lewis, the head coach, is a defensive guy, and the Bengals defense was so good this year, a lot of fingers are being pointed at Andy Dalton. I think this next season is going to be big for Andy Dalton's future in Cincinnati. Now, we mentioned that Bengals defense. By the end of the season, they were playing as well on the defensive side of the ball as any team in the league. They won 7 out of their last 8 games, as we said, and all 7 of those wins, they held their opposition to 17 points or fewer. And even in the playoff game, holding the Texans to 19 points, you really can't stick that loss on the defense. We mentioned they did score a defensive touchdown in that game. And there's no reason to think the Bengals defense is going to be taking a step back in the near future. They've got a lot of really good young talent. Geno Atkins, one of the best defensive linemen in the league. Vontaze Burfict as a rookie last year, a guy with a lot of character questions coming out of Arizona State. Looks like he's going to be a star in the league, led the Bengals in tackles. They have one of the best cornerbacks in the league in Leon Hall, who's still in the prime of his career. So the Bengals have a lot of pieces on defense. They played really well over the second half of the season. If they can just breathe a little life into their offense, they could be a serious contender, and they have every opportunity to breathe some life into that offense and to improve this team. That's because the Bengals are projected to have more cap space than any team in the NFL next season. So if they want to make a splash in free agency, they most certainly can do it. They picked 21st in April's draft. Be interesting to see how Mike Brown builds this team. Brown is a guy who has been notoriously, stingy is one way to put it. Mike Brown has never been on anybody's list of top owners / GMs in the league. He is in control of the Cincinnati Bengals, and we'll see how much of that money he spends. We don't expect the Bengals to spend all of their cap space, but certainly with more room than any team in the league, you'd think maybe they could make a move or two that could put them over the top from contender to serious championship contender. We'll see if they do that in this offseason. We'll see if we can expect more good things from the Cincinnati Bengals in 2013 and beyond.